West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What do you say on a Friday morning, Friday, June 27? Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Bill Press Show. We want to get into the weekend as much as you do, but, you know, we got to kind of ease in by first taking a look at all the big news of the day here in Washington, D.C., around the country, and around the globe. Our job is to tell you what's going on. Your job to let us know what you think about it. Several ways of doing so. You can give us a call on our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Well, how about it? Bad news yesterday was that the United States lost to Germany 1-0. The good news is that we still advanced into the final round, the final 16. That's the great thing about soccer. You can win and advance. You can tie and advance. You can lose and still advance. Just don't ask me how. President Obama, off in the Twin Cities yesterday, he held a big town hall talking about the jobs and the economy and the middle class. He also did a fundraiser last night for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And then the bear got loose again. He went out to lunch with a woman from Minnesota who had written him a letter about her hard times as a single mom. And then the bear went loose walking around a neighborhood yesterday, even popped into an ice cream store, which he loves to do, for a little treat yesterday afternoon. Today, the first anniversary of the Senate passing immigration reform. Yes, we are still waiting 1 year later for John Boehner to act in the House. And we lost a giant yesterday with the death of Howard Baker. They don't make Republicans like him anymore. Friday on the Bill Press Show. Lots coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
Lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hey, here's the great thing about soccer. You can still lose and then still advance. Go figure. I don't know, but I still like it. What do you say, everybody? It's Friday. Yeah, you bet. It's Friday, June 27. Our favorite day right here around the Bill Press Show. Yours too. Let's celebrate Friday. Friday. How about it? Great to see you this morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the special Friday edition of the Bill Press Show. All right, hallelujahs keep going on and on and on. All across this great country of ours, coast to coast, north, south, east, west, we are there with you on your local progressive talk radio station, booming out to you this Friday morning with the news of the day. There with you on, if you're not lucky enough to have a progressive radio station near you, you can still listen in on your iPhone or your computer or whatever. If you have the TuneIn app downloaded, it's free. Tune in and then go to Progressive Voices channel where you'll find us. Those of you who prefer to watch and not just listen, we're there with you on Free Speech for you on Free Speech TV. Got a satellite dish, find us on DirecTV. And all around the planet, hello, Germany. Good morning, Germany. Your guys played pretty well yesterday. We are there with you at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. Man, I was just thinking of my good friend John Emerson, who's our U.S. ambassador to Germany. Must have been torn yesterday, but I'm sure he rooted for USA.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
Right. I think the Germans there would have to understand.
Yeah.
That our ambassador would be rooting for our team.
Soccer is one of those things you don't pick your allegiances lightly. You know, I mean, if you make the wrong decision and you back the wrong team, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you could indeed. Peter Ogburn, good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
Lisa Murphy also got today off. She'll be back on Monday, in theory. Alicia Cruz here for the phones and on the phones and ready for your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Monty Chancellor, our videographer this morning. Supreme Bolding's got a few days off. Here we go. How about that game yesterday? Peter and I, we teamed up, went to the local bar here, Tunny Cliffs, just down the street. You know, so here it is. It's a work day officially, right? It's noon on a work day. Yeah, the local bar is going to be just empty. Easy to find a spot. Yeah, we checked out two places and couldn't find a spot.
Slammed.
It was, totally. Every seat taken, just mobs of people.
It's great to see. I mean, it's weird to see, but I do love it because, you know, there were less people out on the street yesterday when I was walking down to the bar.
12 to 2, it was empty.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll bet you would not see that many people in Tunny Cliffs for the World Series.
No way. Huh? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And it's something that we mentioned before. Watching soccer, especially, in a bar, especially, is such a unique experience. It's very cool.
Everybody is there with every play and every kick and every movement and everything. And
everybody's on edge.
Yeah.
Every missed kick, the whole thing just moves together as one crowd. It's wild.
I know. No, it's really great. So now Don't ask me how, but through all these intricate, complicated rules of soccer, we did lose yesterday, 1-0, but still advanced to the final 16. We got out of what they called the group of death, and we had some tough. That's the point. We were in a tough competition there for the first three matches. But our coach yesterday, Jurgen Klinsmann, says from now on, it's going to be just knock them off one at a time.
Really just a good feeling, because now we'll just talk about one team to beat at a time, and this is why I'm really excited about the next step now.
Yeah, that game yesterday, it was disappointing, but it was also great fun to watch. And I got to tell you, the Germans really played well. I mean, so did our guys, played extremely well, but they were up against a team that was just like machine. They were machines.
I know that this is going to sound like spin, but the fact that Germany only won 1-0 shows how good we can be, because Germany looks so incredible.
No, that's right. And that Tim Howard, our goalie, he's phenomenal.
He's a freak.
Yeah, he really is.
He's a total freak.
No, the fact that we held the Germans to just one goal is a real coup.
Just the fact, they work together so well.
What I read this morning, I didn't see this yesterday, that like at one point the Germans had 75 passes compared to 7.
Oh, wow.
On the part of the United States team. I mean, sometimes it just looked like we were passing the ball to them.
It really did.
No. And they, they were like machines, such precision, like moving that thing in. But they weren't able to get it in thanks to some really good defense and really good for Tim Howard. But it was great fun to watch. So next up, Tuesday, Belgium. What time of day? Do we know yet?
It's 3:30. 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's still kind of work time, but I think that a lot of people might get away with sneaking off.
Gee, I have this great big hole in my schedule next Tuesday afternoon. Yeah,
how funny.
Afternoon.
Oh, isn't that curious?
Yeah, right. Okay, lots coming up today with a lot of good help. Susan Page joins us on Friday, as she always does, from USA Today. We'll have reporters in from Roll Call and from Politico, and big decisions from the Supreme Court yesterday. So Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center will be in to run us through the impact of the recent Supreme Court decisions. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Last night was the NBA draft. Now that we're finished with the finals, just barely, time for teams to pick up some new players. Last night, the number 1 pick went to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they took Andrew Wiggins, guard from Kansas, one of the best players in the country. Number 2 was the Milwaukee Bucks. They picked up Jabari Parker from Duke. So it was a big night there. You'll see a lot of changes and see how they start to fit in with the teams moving forward.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Basketball especially, rookies can come onto a team and make a big, big difference. So, it's a big deal. And this is one of the best recruiting classes that the NBA has seen in years. So there are a lot of talent out there. Yeah. Sad news for Hillary Clinton. Her new book, Hard Choices, will not be sold in China. In her book, she is critical of the Chinese, and so they put a, quote, effective ban on hard choices.
You could smuggle them in, probably.
You probably could. There's a whole black market for Hillary Clinton's book in China. Her publisher had been pushing to try and get it sold there, but they said, after reading what she had written, they said absolutely not. So, sorry, China, you can't get a hold of it.
It used to be banned in Boston. Now it's banned in China.
That's right. That's right. And if you want to know what those runway models eat, to stay so thin,
nothing.
Mary Jean Conniff, a 6-foot-tall blonde model who was in New York's Fashion Week and has worked for Victor de Souza fashion show, she was busted for stealing. But it's not that she was stealing, it's what she was stealing. She stole Pop-Tarts, a cake, and boxes of cake mix in her handbag and pockets in a grocery store in New York City, and then tried to flee the scene. So if you want to know how to eat like a model, load up on cake and cake mix, apparently. Yeah, Pop-Tarts.
But pay for your own.
But pay for your own, please. Don't try to steal it.
Okay. Hey, we started an unusual place today. We don't usually spend a lot of time talking about obituaries, but when the news came down yesterday about the death of Howard Baker, I really thought it was worth talking a lot about. It was announced yesterday afternoon, actually announced on the Senate floor by Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Howard Baker dying yesterday at his home in Huntsville, Tennessee, at the age of 88. Here's Senator McConnell.
Senator Baker truly earned his nickname, the Great Conciliator. I know he will be remembered with fondness by members of both political parties.
And in fact, Majority Leader Harry Reid followed Mitch McConnell to the podium.
He was an earnest man who worked with any and all members of this body in passing legislation for the good of America.
You know, and here's what's so significant about that. I mean, we often here on this show and in talking with friends, we regret the presence today of Republicans who were willing and had the courage to reach across the aisle and work together with Democrats. We regret, again, so often, Republicans in the Congress who are willing to work on problems and work towards solutions and get things done and not just consider every day another campaign day where you have to attack the enemy. You know what we regret? We regret Republicans like Howard Baker. If I had to choose somebody who was like the number one example of the kind of Republican we don't have anymore, I mean, they almost don't exist anymore. A couple in the Senate, none in the House, it seems. It would be Howard Baker, who never sacrificed his principles. He was always a true Republican, true to his party, true to his country. At the same time, he recognized he was there, again, to serve the American people and to get things done. He once, get this, he described his politics as, his political philosophy as, quote, moderate to moderate conservative. Could you imagine any Republican today who would describe himself as a moderate?
You couldn't win.
No. Or a moderate conservative even. No, moderate conservative. You could not win. You'd be drummed out of the party today.
These days, people are calling Eric Cantor a moderate.
Well, also, I mean, he was known as the Great Conciliator. You just heard Mitch McConnell say that. And a conciliator because he was willing to compromise. He was willing to get things done. Again, I mean, Eric Cantor got thrown out in part because he didn't compromise. He just said he'd be willing to consider debating legislation over the DREAM Act. He didn't say he would vote for it, didn't say he would support it. He would be open to allowing a debate on that issue. Even the idea of debating the issue is enough to get you tossed out. And that's who Howard Baker was. You know, there have been, and Howard Baker himself, he may be best known, well, for, let's stick with that before I get derailed here. This philosophy, he expressed it himself about why it's important to work together. And this was back, Peter, in 1998. 98, right. 1998. It was true then, and it's even more true today.
We're doing the business of the American people. We do it every day. We have to do it with the same people every day. And if we cannot be civil to one another, and if we stop dealing with those with whom we disagree or that we don't like, we would soon stop functioning altogether.
That makes so much sense. It is so plain spoken and so true. And it reminds me of when I was in Crossfire on CNN, and one time, you know, John Sununu and I got into it. It's very unusual. 6 years at CNN, 6 years on Crossfire, twice did it ever get personal and mean, and we had to kind of talk off the air and say, hey, you know, this is no good. Only twice in 6 years, but one of those times, and I remember it was with John Sununu, and John Sununu and I sat down, and Sununu said, you know, we can't let this happen again because life is too short and this show is too short. It's a half an hour show, right? To take it so seriously and not to be friends and not to be able to differ, to disagree, and yet still get along. That simple philosophy. It's the same philosophy. That's what Howard Baker was saying right there, and it's so true.
And how prophetic that he said this 16 years ago and said, if you keep acting like this, then nothing's going to get done. Nothing. And look at what we're getting done now. Right. Look at what Congress is getting done.
I want to say, and Howard Baker was not alone. There were other Republicans that I can think of, and Democrats in the position of Senate Majority Leader, who proved their willingness to work together. Harry Reid is that kind of a Democrat. Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell is not that kind of. He's not a Howard Baker Republican. But Bob Dole was another classic, great leader of the United States Senate, Republican leader. So was Tom Daschle, a great Democratic leader, I believe, and willing to work together. And you know what? Trent Lott also. Trent Lott was much more of a conservative. I don't think he would ever call himself a moderate. But Trent Lott knew his job was there to get things done. I salute them all. And Howard Baker was their model. Howard Baker may be best known, of course, for his willingness to defy his own party and the leaders of his own party, most notably when he was on the Senate Watergate Committee, and he asked the question that has become a catchphrase of American politics.
My primary thesis is still, what did the president know, and when did he know it?
Boy, put it right out there. He had a way of summing things up with words. But it's just, we regret the passing of Howard Baker. What we really regret is that there are no more leaders like him. And this country suffers because of that. What do you think, Howard Baker and his legacy? 866-55-PRESS. Will we ever see that kind of Republican again? 866-55-77-377. Friday morning.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at
a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, Friday morning, June 27. Again, talking about the great conciliator, Howard Baker Jr., dead yesterday at the age of 88. Just a couple of footnotes there. Again, I find it so powerful that he described himself as a moderate to a moderate conservative. Yeah, again, try that today, see how far you get. And the New York Times points out, get this, just this phrase, schooled in the art of compromise by his own powerful father-in-law, Senator Everett M. Dirksen of Illinois. And Dirksen was another giant, a great man of the Senate and a great conciliator. But I love that phrase, schooled in the art of compromise.
It's great.
And again, compromise is the dirty word for Tea Partiers today. They don't get it. They don't get it. That's how you get things done. And as I mentioned, Howard Baker, a real conservative, but as a true conservative, the other thing I admired about him, he was also a very strong environmentalist. He co-authored the Clean Air Act, of 1970, and the Water Pollution Control Act of 1972. And he said the thing he'll be most remembered for is the creation of the Big South Fork National River and Recreation Area. It's a huge park on the Big South Fork of the Tennessee River, I think it is. The Cumberland River, that is part of Tennessee and part of Kentucky. And so again, all these, so many Republicans today who feel, you can't vote for anything to protect the environment. I mean, that's basic heresy.
But the Clean Air Act of 1970, he was taking that on back then.
Yeah, exactly. So he was way, way ahead of his time in some of those areas. A great man. We just miss, again, that kind of leader of either party today in the United States Congress. And Howard Baker tells us that's how it ought to be. They just don't make Republicans like that anymore.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. you could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Here we go now at 34 minutes after the hour on a Friday morning. Final footnote on Howard Baker. You know, my first job in politics was working for, a second job in politics, now the heck of it, working for a Republican just like Howard Baker, a moderate Republican, a big environmentalist in California by the name of Peter Baer, and great man. I was so impressed with him and his politics, moderate conservative politics, that I actually at the time considered joining the Republican Party.
No! Are you kidding?
Oh, no. No, I was ready to become, because I liked him so much, I liked his politics, and I thought that's the way it ought to be. I was ready to become a Republican. And then I realized that his hardest challenges and the people who gave him the most grief were his fellow Republicans, because he was even way back then, because he was a moderate. And I thought, I don't want to be a member of a party where I'm going to have to be fighting the members of my own party all the time. And I just had a sense that eventually he would be drummed out of the Republican Party. And he was. And he ended up becoming a Democrat. And I never became a Republican.
That is amazing.
Yeah. But it shouldn't be that way, you know? I mean, at any rate. So, again, the great Howard Baker. Just bring up.
There's still time if you want to switch to a Republican.
Now it's even harder.
Forget it.
At least in those days, a Republican like Howard Baker could exist in his party, might get some flack, but could still exist and thrive and come to a position of leadership in his own party. Today, impossible. Impossible. Yeah. You stand up today, I don't care what state you're from, and say, I'm a moderate Republican. You're dead, baby.
Yeah.
You're not dead in the general election. You're dead in the primary. That's the problem. Yeah, right. So, just bringing us to date on a couple of other issues of the day. We know that John Boehner, he doubled down again yesterday and said, no, the president, he is exceeding his executive authority. We're going to sue him for all these executive orders. We played this yesterday, but it's worth playing again. Even on Fox News, they realize that this is just silly and just John Boehner trying to distract attention from the fact that the House is doing nothing, so they want to accuse sue the president for doing something. Crazy Michelle Bachmann goes on Fox News with Neil Cavuto yesterday, 2 days ago, on his show on Fox Business, tries to defend this move, but Neil Cavuto will have no part of it, and he basically just throws her off the set.
Where was your rage? Where was your rage, Congresswoman?
Listen.
Where was your rage, Congresswoman? No, you're conflating issues and you're being silly. Where was your rage when Democrats were going after President Bush on the same use of executive orders? Because I think you knew then that was a waste of time then, and I think you know in your heart of hearts this is a waste of time now. There are far more important things that you guys have to be addressing. Think about what you're saying. Defund the executive branch. Congresswoman, if Democrats had said, we're going to just defund President Bush, we're going to defund the executive, you would laugh them out. And so you should have then. And I think Democrats will be in their right mind to laugh you out now. Yeah. More after this.
Well, then what do you do? What do you do? That's what the...
What do you do? 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 I'll tell you what you do. How about immigration reform, minimum wage, unemployment insurance, climate change? Maybe you do your job, dingbat. God, I'm telling you, Michelle Bachmann. So, of course, you go on Fox News, man, and you say anything at all, which is kind of considered to be balanced, again, moderate, right? You get the hate mail. Neil Cavuto yesterday read some of the hate mail from his viewers, not happy that he took on Michelle Bachmann.
Flynn in Orlando, you lost me as a viewer on this one. That was extremely rude and overboard. Cal in Washington, D.C. Here's what I hate about you, Cavuto. Everything. Tim in Burlington, Vermont. Off your meds again, huh, Cavuto? Oh, that's nice. Tommy in New Orleans. Tell your boss to fire you right now. Boss, Tommy says fire me right now. Bob in North Carolina. When your big, loud mouth becomes the story, I change the channel. Gene in Titusville. You're wrong, Neil. We need to sue the president. Well, that's fine, Gene. Let's see you stick to that when Democrats try the same on the next Republican president.
Yeah, okay, well, Neil Cavuto.
Hey, boss, Tommy says fire me.
Yeah, right, Neil Cavuto. Yeah, welcome to the club. I can also read a lot of my hate email, too, and I have over the years. But it comes with the territory, and Neil knows that. And but, you know, I always feel if you don't get hate mail like that, You're not doing your job.
That's right. That's right. I should apologize for the hate mail I sent you earlier.
Okay. My column is out today. By the way, let's post it a little bit if I haven't already done so. My column on the IRS, the scandal. The headline is "The IRS Scandal That Isn't," just debunking the whole attempt by Darrell Issa and other Republicans to prove that there was a big conspiracy between the White House and the IRS to target conservative groups and to destroy their deliberately destroy their emails. It's all a bunch of bunk. I think I proved that in my column at any rate, but I know that I will get flooded with once this column gets, and it may already be released. I haven't gotten any hate mail this morning, so I wonder if it's up there. But
that's when you know it's up, huh?
When I know it's out when the hate mail starts flowing in. So welcome again, President Obama. Off in Minnesota yesterday in the Twin Cities, where he was all over the place. I was following the press pool from the White House yesterday, and of course he watched the soccer game on Air Force One flying out there. But he did a town hall. He went out to lunch with this woman who wrote him a letter. He did a fundraiser for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He took a walk around a neighborhood. He went in for ice cream. I don't know. He might have gotten around to golfing yesterday, as far as I know. And then he spent the night there. I don't know where he went out last night, but at any rate, he did say yesterday he sat down with George Stephanopoulos, the new lead anchor of ABC, among other things. He talked about this flood of unaccompanied minors coming through Mexico from El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala up to the United States, and the president said, this is we got to stop this.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it.
Yeah, indeed. And some 45,000 kids that we're trying to process now. And these kids are sent temporarily to a foster home or to some central location, and then they're taken to a deportation hearing, and then finally, most of them sent back to where they came from. On the issue of gun safety at the town hall yesterday, the president said, of all the things that he has not been able to get done, the biggest disappointment maybe of the 6 years of his presidency is no action on gun safety, not even after Newtown.
I thought that was going to be a breakthrough moment. The fact that it wasn't was probably the most disappointing moment that I've had with Congress.
And as I said, the president spent the night in the Twin Cities last night. He will be back, coming back east on Air Force One later today. Susan Page is the Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Keeping on top of all the issues of the day, we will join her next for our Friday visit. So stay tuned with us. Friday, June 27th.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment.
All
could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes now before the top of the hour. On a Friday morning, June 27. If it's Friday, it must be Susan Page standing by here, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, and a real bon vivant here in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Susan.
I've never been called that, Bill. Thanks.
Is that right? Well,
I'm not sure it applies, but thanks.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I know you well enough to know it applies. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad it's Friday.
Getting out of town for the weekend?
I am. I'm going to the beach.
All right. So am I. I'm going, but not to your beach, even though I'm going to the beach up in Rhode Island for the weekend.
You'd be welcome at my beach anytime.
It's a great beach. I know it well. As I told you, grew up there in Fenwick Island, Delaware.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, Susan, Howard Baker did yesterday. They don't make that kind of Republican anymore, do they?
I was just thinking that the Bipartisan Policy Center put out a report this week with like 60 recommendations on making Washington work better that included things like the president and congressional leaders should meet at least once a month. And I thought Howard Baker would not recognize the world we live in now, where you would take an 18-month study group to come up with the idea that maybe the president and congressional leaders should meet. It's just a different era, different expectations, different policies and attitudes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did you ever interview him?
I did, not when he was in the Senate, but when he was serving as White House Chief of Staff in the Reagan administration.
Right, and he was also ambassador to Japan for a while and everything. But, as you saw, the New York Times reports this morning, he described himself as a moderate to moderate conservative. Imagine today any Republican standing up and saying, I'm a moderate, right?
And, I think that in today's Republican Party, he would both be considered, his policies would be considered too centrist to be acceptable, but also his attitude that it's good to compromise, that you need to give something to get something. I think those attitudes have kind of gone out the window. This is the week that John Boehner announced he was going to sue the president for abuse of executive authority.
You'll enjoy this. We played a clip a little earlier of John. This is Howard Baker, Peter, if we can play that. This is 1998, and it's so profoundly good common sense about getting along in the Senate. It's not that long. Just listen up.
We're doing the business of the American people. We do it every day. We have to do it with the same people every day. And if we cannot be civil to one another, and if we stop dealing with those with whom we disagree or that we don't like, we would soon stop functioning altogether.
Makes so much sense.
And which is pretty much what's happened, right? We've stopped functioning altogether.
That's it. He was so prophetic, right?
Yeah. The other thing to remember about Howard Baker is, and this is also a sign of how things have changed, a Republican who took on Richard Nixon in a serious way during the impeachment hearings. These days, both sides generally line up behind their party and would be unwilling to do something like that.
That's right. Very, very tough to get them to break ranks like that. And, just as I say, don't make Republicans like that anymore. And we regret that kind of leadership.
Yeah, we miss it.
This is the first anniversary to yesterday, I think it was. Maybe it's today. I guess it's today, of immigration reform passing the Senate. So when's the House going to take that bill up?
You remember how optimistic everybody was a year ago today?
Yes.
People were chanting, "Yes, we can," on the in the Senate, and it turned out that was not correct. No, we can't.
Yeah.
Because if immigration reform could not be a more distant prospect now than it is. I mean, between the failure of the House to take it up to this influx of kids, unaccompanied minors across the border,
right?
It's just
Eric Cantor getting bounced out, because he was even willing to consider debating the DREAM Act thing. Now, you talked this week to Congressman Jeff Flake from Arizona. Talk about somebody who's right on the front lines of this issue. Right, from Arizona. And also he was a member of the Gang of Eight last year. He's one of the four Republicans. I didn't realize that, was he? Yeah. One of the 4 Republicans who joined with 4 Democrats in negotiating that Senate compromise. And what was his take on the possibility of getting any legislation this year? Quote, close to zero. Wow. Now, I asked him if it's possible after the midterm elections that prospects might get better. A lot of people assume that it's going to take another presidential election. Yeah. He said maybe they could break it up the way the House wanted to, do it piecemeal. That's a possible approach, but I cannot report that he was really optimistic about that. He just thought it wasn't totally impossible to imagine. And you talked to him after Kevin McCarthy had already been elected? That's correct. As a new majority leader, rather. The early signs from Kevin McCarthy on issues like the Ex-Im Bank are not that he's going to be willing to take on the Tea Party forces. No. It looks like he's standing up for them, actually, at least on that issue. Susan, have you had a chance this week to see Josh Earnest in action at the podium? I've not been at the White House. Yeah. I've seen some of the accounts of his early briefings. I know that you have been there. What have you thought? Well, I've been there for all 3 that he did this week. I think he does a good job. I mean, he's very relaxed at the podium. He's very direct. He's much more succinct in his answers than Josh Earnest. Than Jay was. And he moves around the room, takes questions. Oh, that's great. Which I find that way he gets, and we get a better questions and a better range of issues, right, brought up than if you just stick to the front row who will all ask the same question all the time. This is an issue I'm sure that people outside the Beltway think, what in the world are you talking about? But it makes a difference whether you only ask the network people, let them ask questions of the White House briefing, or if you let people from regional newspapers and radio networks and elsewhere pose questions. I think it makes a difference, and I'm really glad to hear he's doing that. Yeah, no, he is, and I think it makes for a better mix. I really do. Now, have you had a question? Oh yeah. No, I asked him this week about why the president had not endorsed Charlie Rangel. And whether he would endorse Charlie Rangel in the general, and he said he would, so I got that out of him. And then I also asked him about the World Cup, and whether the president was going to rearrange his schedule so he could watch yesterday's match. And he did watch it on Air Force One. He watched it. He said something tantalizing in his interview with George Stephanopoulos yesterday, too, saying that the World Cup had presented some opportunities on foreign policy to talk with leaders. I don't know exactly what he meant, but I'm all for World Cup politics. It's got to be good. It's got to be better than what we've got today, right? Maybe he's going to Brazil. No, not. Who knows? Okay. All right, Susan, off to the beach. You can jump in the car right now. You too, Bill. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. You too. Susan Page from USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. some done. I want you to just finish the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What did the Supreme Court do yesterday? Find out in the next hour.
Bill, I don't know if you knew this, but in Minneapolis, there is a war between a place called Matt's and the 5-8 Club.
Didn't know.
Both of them claim to have invented the Juicy Lucy. That is a burger that has cheese stuffed inside the burger. Yesterday, the President of the United States took a stand in the Juicy Lucy war. He ate at Matt's. He ate a Juicy Lucy burger. So, in the battle of the Juicy Lucy, President Obama is on Matt's side.
He took sides,
He took sides, which is a big deal in Minneapolis.
Oh, man. All I know is I don't care which one I get, I want a Juicy Lucy.
Right?
When I read about that this morning, I said, man, that's worth a trip to Minneapolis. Give me a Juicy Lucy.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
What do you say on a Friday morning, Friday, June 27? Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Bill Press Show. We want to get into the weekend as much as you do, but, you know, we got to kind of ease in by first taking a look at all the big news of the day here in Washington, D.C., around the country, and around the globe. Our job is to tell you what's going on. Your job to let us know what you think about it. Several ways of doing so. You can give us a call on our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Well, how about it? Bad news yesterday was that the United States lost to Germany 1-0. The good news is that we still advanced into the final round, the final 16. That's the great thing about soccer. You can win and advance. You can tie and advance. You can lose and still advance. Just don't ask me how. President Obama, off in the Twin Cities yesterday, he held a big town hall talking about the jobs and the economy and the middle class. He also did a fundraiser last night for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And then the bear got loose again. He went out to lunch with a woman from Minnesota who had written him a letter about her hard times as a single mom. And then the bear went loose walking around a neighborhood yesterday, even popped into an ice cream store, which he loves to do, for a little treat yesterday afternoon. Today, the first anniversary of the Senate passing immigration reform. Yes, we are still waiting 1 year later for John Boehner to act in the House. And we lost a giant yesterday with the death of Howard Baker. They don't make Republicans like him anymore. Friday on the Bill Press Show. Lots coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
These canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold. From the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
Power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Your TV and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here's the great thing about soccer. You can lose but still win. I like it. We still advanced into the final 16 yesterday. Great for the USA team. Good morning, everybody. Friday, June 27. So good to see you on a Friday morning. I know you're as excited about the weekend as I am. This is really the beginning of summer. It's the weekend before the 4th of July, and you know, from now on it's going to be, we're all going to be working like sort of half-time, don't you think? Between now and Labor Day.
I'm going to take that as permission. Since you're my boss, I'm taking that. I'm going to take that and run with it, buddy.
Well, if we follow the lead of Congress, then we'll leave town this weekend and you won't see us again. Yeah, how about it? At any rate, we are coming to you live all the way across this great land of ours on the radio and on television, on the radio on your local progressive talk station, on the radio on the TuneIn app. Download it. It's free. Yeah, there is such a thing as a free lunch. It's a free app anyhow. Tune in and find us on the Progressive Voices channel. On television, on Free Speech TV, you got a satellite dish, DirecTV, and on worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/talker, TAWKR TV. Thank you for being there, and don't forget, just give us a call at 866-55-PRESS if you want to join the conversation at any time. And join our team here, minus Elisa Murphy, who is off for again today, but Peter Ogburn sitting at the console this morning to keep the 747 in the air. Good morning.
Happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday. Yeah. Peter and I off yesterday at lunchtime to watch the big World Cup game.
It's fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a very interesting game.
I was a little nervous there, man.
Everybody was nervous.
Everybody's nervous because the Germans are so good.
They really are good.
Yeah, we held them, but we held them to just one goal. It was good. Alicia Cruz is on the phone lines waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS and behind the locked, closed door without a microphone. Monty canceled her.
That's right.
We don't give our videographers the mic. It's too dangerous.
Nope.
Supreme
don't want to do that.
Got a couple of days off. Yes, even as I mentioned, raised with Josh Earnest at a briefing the other day. I mean, what was the president going to be doing, and where was he going to be between 12 and 2 yesterday, East Coast time? He was on Air Force One, flying to Minnesota. And, of course, on Air Force One, you can watch television, unlike on most commercial airlines. And the president was there watching the World Cup. He congratulated the U.S. team as soon as he got off the plane.
I have to begin by congratulating our U.S. soccer team, Team USA, for advancing. Next round of the World Cup. USA.
Yes.
He gets into it. Yeah, he realizes he's got to go along. Get go with the chat. Yeah, USA. Right.
Let me be clear.
And the president pointed out, that everybody was saying, man, you've been condemned to death with the choice of teams that you got in the first round.
We were in what's called the group of death. And even though we didn't win today, we were in the toughest grouping. And, we got through, and so we just still got a chance to win the World Cup, and we could not be prouder of them. They are defying the odds and earn a lot of believers in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned a couple of days ago, I'm convinced that nobody can figure out the rules of soccer. I showed you yesterday morning, the New York Times had calculated that there were 984 different permutations with yesterday's games and the 4 different teams that were playing and how many goals they scored and win or losing or tying or whatever, by which 984 ways by which the United States could advance to the final 16.
Yeah.
And we did it the hard way. We did it by losing, but we still advanced.
It was a little bittersweet yesterday, wasn't it?
So if you look at the 3 games that we've played so far, the 3 matches, right? Okay, you can win and advance, you can tie and advance, and you can lose and advance.
Thanks, Obama.
What's not
leading from behind?
What's not to like about soccer?
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter. All those from now on in, it does though.
Exactly.
From now on, it's
win or go home.
Win or go home.
That's it.
No, win or go forward. Lose or go home, right?
Win or go home. If you win or lose, and if you lose, you go home.
I thought you said win or go home.
No, sorry, win or go home.
Or go home.
That's it.
Got it. Our next match, Tuesday against Belgium. So I guess Belgium must be pretty good or they wouldn't be where they are.
Belgium is actually very good, and some people,
such a small country.
I don't want to jinx anything, but some people have said that Belgium is a real sleeper in this tournament to go deep into the cup. They're a very good, very, very good team, very underrated team.
All right. And the guy who, the serial biter, got suspended for 4 months.
Stay tuned.
And $110,000 fine.
Stay tuned.
What do you mean?
I'm about to do the story.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to jump on your line.
Anything else you want to talk about? Let's get it all out there.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Supreme Court with Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center. She'll be joining us in just a little bit later. Also, reporters from Politico and Roll Call. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Hey, would you look at that? FIFA has ruled on Luis Suarez, the biter, from Uruguay. Would you believe it? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, gosh darn the luck. He was actually hit with a ban for 9 international matches and suspended for 4 months by FIFA. This, of course, is for the bite that he put on the Italian player earlier this week. It is not the first time that he has bitten. He was also fined 100,000 Swiss francs, or $111,000. It is the most harsh penalty that FIFA has ever handed out for something that had happened on the field.
But, I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad they did it as fast as they did.
They didn't waste much time. You're absolutely right. They did not waste much time.
And I don't see anybody saying, oh, it was unfair. Biting, come on.
Biting more than one time. Biting once is bad enough, but when you do it 3 times,
What's he, 3 years old?
Exactly.
Or 2 years
Maybe
old?
he was teething. And The View is going to look very different in the next season. We knew that Barbara Walters was leaving the show. She's retiring. We also found out yesterday that co-host Jenny McCarthy and Sherry Shepherd are leaving the show. Jenny McCarthy hasn't been on the show for very long.
No.
Sherry Shepherd has been on for 7 seasons. It's entering its 18th season. So that leaves Whoopi Goldberg is the only one left from the current setup of what The View looks like, so we will have a totally new show when it comes back.
Wonder who else they're going to get. We'll find out.
They got a lot of seats to fill now. Yeah, so we'll have to see. And this is a hilarious story. House Republicans, led by Maryland Congressman Andy Harris, may have accidentally legalized marijuana in Washington, D.C. He pushed forward a bill that would make it illegal to have marijuana and to make any laws allowing marijuana to be legal, right? But the problem is the way that he worded the billing could actually prevent police departments from printing citations and writing and processing them because of the law. So, by accident, by trying to outlaw it altogether, he may have actually legalized it in Washington, D.C. Just puts a little loophole, but you got to be clear when you're writing those laws.
Well, let me know, will you? Because, I mean, this could be important.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go, 15 minutes after the hour. Today is a big day because it's a Friday. It's another big day. It's also a big day because it is an anniversary day. An incredible anniversary to note. And an anniversary that proves how much this current Congress is broken. You know, we hear about it all the time. We talk about it all the time. They can't get anything done. No action on this or that, whatever. But I think the classic textbook case of how broken this Congress is immigration reform. And the reason we're talking about it today is because today is the first anniversary. 1 year ago today, the United States Senate, bipartisan vote, passed comprehensive immigration reform. It was not a perfect bill. There's no such thing as a perfect bill. It was the result of compromise. It was a case of Republicans and Democrats sitting down to say, here's the problem. Now, what can we do together? How far can we come together to pass a bill that deals with this problem? It's a damn good bill, a strong bill, supported by the President of the United States. So you got the Senate, you've got the President, the bill gets passed. What happened next? For the last year, it's been sitting in the House and never brought even up for a vote. It didn't get debated and defeated. It has never even been debated, never discussed, never brought to the floor of the House because the Tea Partiers don't like it and John Boehner won't cross the Tea Party. Yesterday, several Democratic senators stood up to note this anniversary and what it all means. Let's start with Dick Durbin from Illinois.
Speaker Boehner, who has refused to call this bipartisan measure that came out of the Senate now for one solid year, is critical of this president for using his authority to try to address the many challenges of immigration facing our nation.
And it's true. I mean, it's really the fact that we don't have any immigration reform today, not even a debate on it. It doesn't have to be the Senate bill, any bill at all, or anything halfway between the Senate bill and what the House would like. It's all due to one man, the Speaker, John Boehner, who will not schedule it for a vote. I mean, it's like, what do we have, a king, right? Autocratic rule. He decides what gets debated and what does not. Not what loses and what wins or what loses. What even is brought to the floor. Harry Reid pointed out that this, on John Boehner's part, even though the vast majority of Americans want immigration reform.
Americans want their elected officials to work together to fix our nation's problems, and this is a problem that needs to be fixed. 8 in 10 Americans support immigration reform.
8 in 10 support it, which is why Chuck Schumer added in then, well, if they keep going down this road, then they are really kind of basically handing the issue over to Democrats to take care of once the Republicans lose control of everything.
The House has yet to act. Hope springs eternal, because Republicans know that if the House does not pass immigration reform, they'll be handing the House, the presidency, the Senate to Democrats in 2016, and we will write our own bill in 2017.
It's just unbelievable that they can't come together on this issue, particularly this issue. Look, we know how serious it is. We've been talking about immigration reform for a long, long time, and different presidents have had to take care of it. The last one who did so in any comprehensive way was Ronald Reagan, and who actually came up with part of his plan, which he called at the time amnesty, because he had to deal with 5 million people who were living here, who had come here illegally and living here in the United States, and weren't going home. We knew, and had jobs and were paying taxes and had to be somehow brought out of the shadows. Well, today, that same problem, we're back again, but now it's not 5 million. It's maybe 12, maybe, we don't know, maybe 15 million people. Families and kids in school and kids who served in the military. And again, people who have homes and they're parts of their churches and parts of they're members of churches, they're parts of their community. They're paying taxes. They've got jobs. They're not going home either. And somehow we've got to, deal with that problem and bring them out of the shadows and give them some kind of path to citizenship. We recognize that, some Republicans and some Democrats. George W. Bush recognized that and came up with a very good immigration plan, which was supported by a lot of Republicans in the Congress and Democrats in the Congress. But was, remember, attacked by the extreme right wing, particularly the talk radio host at the time and the incipient Tea Party at the time. And then that legislation also got lost in the aftermath of September 11, when the whole focus changed to war on terror and got away from immigration reform. But President Obama brought back, in essence, he just took George Bush's plan and dusted it off and brought it back. A comprehensive immigration reform plan, which once enjoyed bipartisan support, including the support of people like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and John McCain. And today, they get out of the Senate. They can't even get a vote in the House. I believe that Republicans are doing this at their own peril. And many Republicans have said the same thing. Lindsey Graham, remember, said, if we ever want to win the White House back ever again, we have to be the party that pushes immigration reform. Yeah. Well, Lindsey Graham, tell that to John Boehner. And now, most common. I don't know. Let me put it this way: I don't know anybody in Washington who thinks that there will be immigration reform this year. I mean, last week the White House put out this kind of phony little thing. Oh, with Kevin McCarthy now as the new majority leader, maybe we'll have a shot at immigration reform. Oh, come on, Kevin McCarthy. After he saw what happened to Eric Cantor, Kevin McCarthy in no way is going to cross the Tea Party and push for a vote on immigration reform. So, do you think it could happen this year? And what happens to Republicans by rejecting it and refusing to consider it? 866-55-PRESS. Back in just a minute with your comments on The Bill Press Show.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
And, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, the Supreme Court, in a big flurry of decisions announced, as they always do at the end of each session. Big decisions yesterday on presidential executive authority and on the sort of cordon sanitaire around abortion clinics. Elizabeth Wydra will be here from the Constitutional Accountability Center to bring us up to date on that. On the immigration issues, Cesar is calling from Chicago. Hello, Cesar. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Okay, my comment is that the nation as a whole wants immigration reform.
Yes.
We passed the bill in Congress that can be revised, it can be added to, it can be subtracted, but the Republicans refuse to do anything with it because they really don't care, because the status quo right now in terms of the 10 or whatever million of immigrants in the country, they're invisible to them, and so it's working for them, and they don't care.
No, I think you're right. They clearly don't care, but I guess, Cesar, the thing to me is that they ought to realize that by not caring and not acting, they are hurting not only hurting the country, they're hurting the Republican Party.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000.
you'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Friday morning, June 27, The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us this morning. You know, the Supreme Court is sort of like we all were in college. You put it off and put it off. You put it off until the very, very end. Then you just cram right before you have to take your exam. I always think of the Supreme Court that way because they hear all these cases and nothing happens. And then just before they leave town, suddenly they just start dropping decisions right and left.
And then they get to go on summer vacation.
That's it. So it's a good that we've got Elizabeth Wydra here from the Constitutional Accountability Center, Chief Counsel, in studio with us. It's nice that you're there keeping track of all this stuff, right? Not only keeping track, but you can explain what all these decisions mean. I thought yesterday was very unusual in that we had 2 unanimous decisions, right?
You know,
how often do they decide something where everybody agrees?
Well, so there are a couple interesting things about that. First of all, most of their opinions actually are unanimous.
Really?
But they're generally the ones that are, not the hot button issues that we all focus on.
Got it. Yeah.
But it is unusual for those to be unanimous, especially the ones at the end of the term, which tend to be sort of the more controversial.
Yeah.
The last couple years we saw marriage equality, the Affordable Care Act stuff come out the last days of the term. But what I think is interesting about yesterday's, so-called unanimous, I think Dahlia Lithwick called them phonanimous opinions, is that if you look underneath the numbers, they actually are sharply divided 5-4 on issues that, so you can do what the Supreme Court can do if they all agree on the outcome, if they agree on the judgment. And that happened unanimously in the cases yesterday.
Yeah.
But their reasoning was extremely different. And we saw, so the cases yesterday dealt with important questions of executive power and access to reproductive health services.
Right.
And the conservatives in those cases would have limited the executive power much more sharply than the majority did, and in the reproductive health services case would have limited the ability to restrict access to clinics much more strictly than you saw.
So they were divided inside the opinions, but united on the overall
outcome.
Exactly. Right. Let's start with the recess appointments. So the issue was whether the president exceeded his authority in naming 3 members of the National Labor Relations Board.
Exactly.
And they said he did.
That's exactly what they said. And so the president has the power. He's on the job 24/7. That's what the founders, when they created our system of government, said, we recognize that the legislature is going to go into recess, have breaks, but the president is on the job 24/7. And so he needs to have the authority, and they gave this to him in the recess appointments clause, to make sure that the government is fully staffed. And so he used that recess appointments power to put 3 members of the National Labor Relations Board on. And the Supreme Court said that that was unconstitutional because in this particular instance, the Senate was having these pro forma sessions where they gavelled in every few days for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
The chamber was empty. It was usually some local senator who would come in just to gavel in and out to and the president saw that as frustrating his ability to use his recess appointments clause and said these are just a legal fiction. They're not actually in session. They were only,
it was like just 3 days at these little
every
breaks.
3 days, and then there'd be a 20-second in and out gavel.
Right. Yeah.
And so a majority.
By the way, and the Senate was doing that only to prevent the president from making recess appointments.
Well, that's certainly how the president saw it. But the Supreme Court...
I thought at the time senators even acknowledged that, but anyhow.
Yeah, look, folks on both sides of the aisle have used these pro forma sessions to frustrate the president's ability to do recess appointments. And, my feeling about it is, there are some politics going on here, definitely, but we should make sure that we're giving an accurate reading of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And so on the bright side, from my perspective, the court didn't as strictly limit the president's recess appointments power as the lower court did, the conservative majority on the D.C. Circuit, and didn't limit it as strictly as the more conservative justices on the Supreme Court would have done it.
Right.
There was a separate concurring opinion of 4 conservative justices that would have limited the president's recess appointments power even further.
Yeah, yeah. So and this decision written by Justice Stephen Breyer said, no, that 3 days, you exceeded your authority in that case. Now, if it were 10 days, then that's a real break. I mean, 10 days is a real. So what happens to the 3 people who were appointed?
So they have actually already been replaced by folks who have been properly confirmed.
I get it.
But the real question is what happens to those, more than 1,000 decisions that were rendered by the National Labor Relations Board
during the
time that those recess appointees were on.
And who decides that?
Well, there's going to be a short period, hopefully a short period, not a long period, of uncertainty over at the National Labor Relations Board. It seems as if the newly constituted board will be able to go back and reissue some decisions, and they will likely have the same outcome that they had before. But we are going to look at a period of uncertainty and potential chaos over there at the board.
Okay. Now, the other case, again, unanimously on the overall opinion, was this, what do they call it? I call it cordon sanitaire.
The buffer zone.
The buffer zone. Thank you. Yeah, let's speak English, not French here. Around reproductive abortion clinics. And up in Massachusetts, I know this was challenged in Massachusetts, but also this has been working in Massachusetts, hasn't it?
Well, that's
this buffer zone.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly that's certainly what Massachusetts and Attorney General Coakley argued to the court.
Which said that, so just so people understand, it just said around at one of these clinics, protesters they have to be a certain number of feet away.
Feet in this case, yeah.
35 feet away. And what was the problem? I mean, they have to be right on the front doorstep?
So that actually was pretty much the argument of the folks who challenged the buffer zone. They said that, we want to, in her words, the woman who challenged this law under the First Amendment, saying it violated her right to free speech, she said, I want to engage in a conversation with the women who are going to these clinics. And I can't do that if I have to stand 35 feet away and shout at her or hold up a sign. I want to have what she deemed and what the majority called a compassionate conversation about these things. And because that's the way that I want to engage in speech, by forcing me to stand 35 feet away as opposed to being closer to the person, I can't effectively convey my message.
That's nonsense. Bill. It is nonsense. I mean, listen, every day walking up the street here, right, there are people who want to engage me in conversation. That doesn't mean I have to talk to them.
No, it doesn't.
But I
think the majority of the Supreme Court would say, when you're talking about a public sidewalk, and they emphasize this in their decision that, public sidewalks and, that's a public forum.
Okay. The other thing is, I go by the Supreme Court all the time. Yeah. If I took my little protest sign and tried to get up on the steps of the Supreme Court, I'd be thrown out of there so fast. I mean, there are protests, but there is a buffer zone around the Supreme Court building.
Yeah, I'm sure you would like to have a compassionate conversation with some of those justices.
Yes, I would, as they walk in and out of their chamber. Sure, I'd like to be right there at the private doors that they go in and out of, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so what they're in effect saying is, buffer zones are okay for us, but not for the general public, right?
That's that was raised to them in one of the briefs filed in the case,
Yeah.
but they didn't mention that somehow in their ruling yesterday. But that they said
so what's the impact of this decision then?
So what they said was that it's not. They didn't say that this can never be okay. What they said was that Massachusetts didn't show that they had considered less restrictive speech, that they hadn't considered ways that were less restrictive of speech. So perhaps a smaller buffer zone, maybe another way of preventing the harms that they legitimately have an interest in preventing. Preventing people from obstructing access to the clinics or assaulting women who are trying to access services. So the Supreme Court recognized that there was an interest that Massachusetts had here, just that the means that they chose to achieve that was too restrictive of the First Amendment speech rights of the folks involved in this case.
All right, now the two other cases is we're going to ask about, but what are the ones that we haven't heard from yet? And what shoes are we big shoes waiting to drop?
Big shoes. So on Monday, which is scheduled to be the last day of the Supreme Court term, we should get the ruling in the Hobby Lobby case, which is probably the biggest case of the term, dealing with the contraception coverage provision of the Affordable Care Act and Hobby Lobby corporations' objection to it on the basis that they say covering these forms of contraception for their female employees violates their religious beliefs and thus violates their right to free exercise.
Yeah. That's the biggest one for sure.
That's the biggest one. And we're also waiting for...
And they hold it until the very last
I know. They
day.
always make us
They
wait.
always do. Yeah, right.
And we're also waiting for Harris v. Quinn, which has to do with public sector unions and the First Amendment also in that case. We've had a lot of First Amendment cases this term, which I think is really interesting.
All right. The Supreme Court finally getting, lifting the veil and letting us know how they decide on some of these important cases, which we're considering with Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center. It's the usconstitution.org. That's our website, and we'll be right back. If you've got questions or comments, join the conversation here at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Taking a look at the overall political scene, very interesting this week with Rebecca Sinderbrand from Politico and Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call in the next hour. Right now, we're trying to figure out what the Supreme Court is up to and what they've decided and what we can expect to hear from them with Elizabeth Wydra, Chief Counsel for the Constitutional Accountability Center. Supreme Court is her territory, her full-time focus. And how often do you actually get into the courtroom?
Oh, I'd say I go for arguments about probably a dozen or so times a year.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you get a good sense of how the justices are relating to one another, in addition to hearing, of course, what's happening in the case itself.
Right. And did you get access to that? Is it easy enough to get access, or...?
Well, fortunately, I'm a member of the Supreme Court bar.
Oh, I got it.
And so we have
Okay.
a line separate from the public line,
Yeah.
and a seating section
Right.
that is reserved for members
How
of the
many
bar.
seats? I've never been in the Supreme Court. How many seats are how many,
Oh God,
seats are available?
This is terrible. I have such a bad estimation. You know, it's like when the Supreme Court heard that buffer zone case, we were talking about the abortion clinics. Justice Kagan said something about how this court is probably about 35 feet, the length of the Massachusetts buffer zone. And commentators made fun of her because it was like way off. And I feel like I'm the same way about trying to estimate how many. Probably about 80, 100.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me. But it's a much smaller room than you would think. And actually the distance between the person who's arguing and the justices is very small. If both of
You're like right in their face?
Exactly. Yeah, if the Chief Justice and the
Right, like it wasn't
advocate-
horrifying enough that you're in front of the Supreme Court, you're right up in their grill.
Yeah.
But, it's very intimate in a way. Probably if they both reached out, they could touch fingers. It's that close.
I wouldn't do that, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, the Chief Justice probably would not like that.
No, but it's like the briefing room at the White House. Everybody just see it on television, and when you see it in person, you realize how small it is. There are 49 seats in the briefing room.
And, probably about
as
contentious in the questioning sometimes.
Maybe more so. I'm not really sure. All right. So earlier in the week, we saw the decisions. The cell phone decision was a pretty significant decision.
Absolutely.
I thought. Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important privacy decisions in sort of the cell phone digital age. It's the first time that the Supreme Court has applied the Fourth Amendment this clearly to the contents of the smartphones, cell phones that we carry around with us every day.
The police can't just take them and start looking through to see what you've got in your phone. They can check it to see if there's a physical danger, right? Like a razor blade or something like that. But other than that, can't just scroll through.
You have to get a warrant.
Have to get a warrant.
And so that was a really, I have
Does
to say.
that apply to laptops or to iPads or whatever?
So interestingly, that wasn't directly at issue in the case. The case dealt with a smartphone and then a flip phone. But I think the reasoning of the ruling says that laptops and iPads are different. So the way that the law worked before, if you were stopped in a car and on the seat next to you was a notebook or something like that, or a piece of paper or a photo, that the police could go through that evidence without a warrant. Or if you had it on you have an even better example. If in your pocket you had your wallet, and in your wallet you had a bunch of pictures and maybe a note from, your girlfriend, then the police could look through that because it's in your pocket without a warrant. But what this decision says is that when it comes to these devices that hold so much personal information, that the police need to get a warrant. And I think that applies just as clearly to laptops and iPads. So if you have a backpack and you have a laptop in it, even though it's on your person and sort of under the old rules, the police would be able to search it without a warrant. I think under this ruling, you'd have a hard time showing that the police don't have to get a warrant, which is a big development in Fourth Amendment law.
But and it seems to me it's significant in the sense that before, most people would store all these documents like they'd have a drawer in their desk at home or something like that, right? And today, it's on your hard drive.
Absolutely, and that was crucial to the.
And they'd have to get a warrant to search your desk in your office or at home. And so now they're saying you need the warrant where the information is today. It's not physically in your desk. It's electronically on your device.
Absolutely. And Chief Justice Roberts, in his decision for the court in that case, said, actually today we probably carry more sensitive, more private information with us on our phones than we even keep at our house. But he also said that just because we happen to store that information on our cell phones doesn't make it any different from what the founders were concerned about when they wrote the Fourth Amendment into the Constitution.
Right.
Just back then, it was a padlocked trunk in your house, but here we keep it in our pockets.
One little example of that, I know it's not really relevant here maybe, but I'm flying to Providence, Rhode Island after the show today. And when I left the house this morning, I thought, oh my, I knew I was missing something. I was missing something, and I realized what I was missing was my boarding pass. I had not printed out
Who needs that these
my
days?
boarding pass, and then I realized I don't need it because actually I have it on my phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there it is.
Exactly. And as
why have a piece of paper anymore?
There's an app for that. That even made it into the decision.
Pretty soon we won't even have to come into the studio here, Peter.
Hey, it worked for me, sure.
Yeah, all right. Hey, Elizabeth. Well, we can't wait till we have to talk to you next week about Hobby Lobby and see what else comes down. So have a great weekend in between decisions.
Too.
And thanks so much for coming in today.
Always good to be with you.
All right. Right back and tell you what the president's up to today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Hey, friends and neighbors, we know the first 2 hours have been just spectacular, but you know what? The third hour is going to be even better. Two veterans of the Washington reporting scene, political scene, coming up in studio with us. Rebecca Sinderbrand, who is the White House editor for Politico, and Christina Bellantoni, the editor-in-chief, big job, editor-in-chief of Roll Call. All of that coming up in hour number 3. So you Free Speech TV lovers, move over to Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV, and we'll see you there.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
Morning. Then he will be delivering remarks on the economy at 10:50 in the Twin Cities, actually at the Lake Harriet Bandshell in Minneapolis. Then he leaves Minneapolis, comes back here, arrives back at the White House at 3:45 this afternoon, where he will be meeting then with the acting Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Sloan Gibson, and his Deputy Chief of Staff, Rob Neighbors, to talk about and get a report on the progress of cleaning things up at the Veterans Administration. This evening, the President and the First Lady will be 2 blocks from our studio, just down 8th Street here, at the Marine Barracks to see the big Friday night show at the Marine Barracks. That's how he starts off his weekend. We will come back with Rebecca Sinderbrand from Politico, Deputy White House Editor, and then Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call will be joining us. Important third hour coming up.
Is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. There was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. Truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Great thing about soccer, you can lose but still win. I can't figure it out. Well, we lost, but we still advanced to the final 16. I like that. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you this morning. It's Friday morning, June 27. Here we go with this final hour of the Bill Press Show before we move into the weekend. The first big weekend of summer, I think, because it's the weekend before the 4th of July. It's all downhill from here. We're excited about it. Hope you are too. And great to have you with us this morning, coming to you live from our nation's capital, where most people have already fled town. A few of us left around. And we're booming out to you across this great land of ours. North, south, east, west. We are there with you coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station on the TuneIn app. The TuneIn app is free. Download it on the Progressive Voices channel. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TalkerTV. Keeping her eye on what's happening at the White House and at the Congress and in Washington for Politico, the deputy White House editor, Rebecca Sinderbrand, here in studio with us. Hey, Rebecca, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming over to the Hood this morning. And we have our regular team here, except for Elisa Murphy's got the week, couple of days off. Peter Ogburn, yes, indeed.
Hey.
The World Cup expert. Peter knows more about the World Cup.
Please.
Well, probably more than anyone in this room, at the very least. I'm assuming.
That's not saying a lot.
You are assuming. You're assuming. You're assuming too much. You've got it correct. Alicia Cruz here on the phones, and Monty Counsel filling in for Cyprian Boulding as our videographer again this morning. And, political power is fleeting. It doesn't last that long, right? Comes and goes, as Michael Bloomberg discovered yesterday up in New York City. He may be remembered most for getting rid of the big gulp.
That's right.
That was his claim to fame as in 3 terms as mayor of New York. Well, yesterday, the big gulp legislation came up for renewal, and the city council said, "No, we don't think so."
The big gulp we will always have with us.
Exactly. So the big gulp is back. Andrew Mosel was with the New York Restaurant Association saying this is a big victory.
We always believed we had a very strong case, and the Department of Health, although it had very good intentions, overstepped its bound in trying to limit what New Yorkers could eat and drink.
So it's reason enough, Rebecca, to go back to New York for the
I mean, I'm booking my ticket right now as we speak.
Hop on.
Hop on the Acela, just a couple blocks away from here.
Get on the Acela, get up there, right? It was kind of, I thought, a silly thing, and everybody was saying, "Well, what's next?"
It was symbol. This is this is he's seeing his legacy pass before his eyes.
What was it? 16 ounces, Peter, that was banned?
Yeah, I think it was above 16 ounces or
whatever it was. I mean, to me, the silliness of it was that you could buy 2 10-ounce things, right, and get more, but you just couldn't buy 16 ounces in one cup.
There's a lot of the math of this that doesn't quite add up for the layman, but
Right. Okay. We've got it, and Peter, yes, indeed. We're going to be talking with Rebecca Sinderbrand here for the first half hour, and then Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call for the second half hour, and we'll get right to the issues of the day. But first,
Peter, what do you got? Is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. The Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University put out a new report on the least affordable cities in the country.
Oh.
Any guesses?
Well, yeah, like we live in one.
We do live in one.
Much, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We are not number 1, but we are in the top 10.
San Francisco,
a good guess.
New York.
New York, also a good guess. However, number 1 is Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the least affordable metropolitan area in the United States due to its high rent prices. Yes, transportation and housing costs. Yes, indeed. In fact, in the top 10, 7 of them are in California.
Wow.
No kidding.
Including San Diego, San Francisco.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. Actor Shia LaBeouf got into some trouble last night. He went to the Broadway play Cabaret and got extremely drunk and belligerent and was not only thrown out of the theater, he was arrested in front of the theater. Yes, he was in the Transformers movie, which opens up this weekend. He's not in this version of it, but one of the sequels opens this weekend. Several bystanders spotted him being loud and aggressive and yelling and being arrested in front of the theater last night.
So life ain't a cabaret, old chum.
Apparently not. Apparently not. And yesterday, the president in Minneapolis waged war in the Juicy Lucy battle. There is a vicious battle going on in Minneapolis because there are two bars / restaurants that claim to have invented the Juicy Lucy. The Juicy Lucy is a burger that has a bunch of cheese stuffed inside of it and then topped off with more burger so that when you cook it, it becomes like this molten cheese situation inside the burger.
So good.
Right?
It really does.
So there are two bars, Matt's Bar and then another place called the 5-8 Bar or the 5-8 Club, and they both claim to have invented the Juicy Lucy. The president yesterday eating at Matt's, taking a firm stand in the battle of the burger there in Minneapolis.
So he probably should have gone down the street and had a Juicy Lucy at the 5-8 Club, too.
Well, the 5-8 Club immediately put out a notice that said we would invite the president to come to our place now so he could compare the two.
And he's showing up. When people invite him out for burgers, he's showing up. We found that out a couple weeks ago.
right.
We went out to Del Rey.
Yeah.
You invite the president, he just might pop by.
That's right, yeah.
Bill, I heard you make a nice burger. You should invite the president over for a burger.
That's right.
Carol's a griller in our house.
Well, you got that New York Times article we talked about the other day about grilling on the cast iron.
How to make the best burger.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, in fact, let's start right there with this. This has sort of become a trend, Rebecca, with the president. In fact, they have announced that yesterday was the first of the Day in Your Life tours that the president is going to do this summer. It was hardly a day in the life.
It was, in fact, I believe, according to one of the reports I saw, it was 53 minutes in the life of Rebecca, this housewife. And yes, that's right. But yeah, so the president's it's the kickoff of his summer road show. He's going to be spending time with ordinary Americans. Some of these this poor woman yesterday clearly was not prepared for the onslaught of attention from the national media. After a little while, they were kind of shielding her from view. But he's going to be breaking out of D.C. This has been a trend we've seen from the president recently. He keeps talking about the bear is loose. I got to break out of the cage. He's clearly feeling a little bit of the cabin fever there in the White House. So his aides are trying to create more opportunities for him to get out on the road and talk to ordinary people.
Yeah, and when he goes out, like he went to Minneapolis, he was just walking down the street, popping into stores. Now, obviously, the Secret Service has done a little advanced preparation here. I mean, to what extent can a president ever escape the bubble?
Well, this is the question, right? So, we've had this question several times. A couple of times over the past few weeks, the president has actually gone out without the pool necessarily being aware at first that he was going out or where he was heading necessarily. So, that's probably the most degree of spontaneity to which a president can allow himself. But, the pool goes out, sees the president on the move, not quite sure where they're headed. That's what passes for spontaneous outing with this president.
Yeah. It is President Clinton used to talk about living in public housing, right?
Well, he says that too. President Obama talks about how he lives in the world's most expensive rental.
Yeah.
He's not an owner; he's just renting. But there's other ways. Our reporters Carrie Budoff-Brown and Jen Epstein spent a couple of months actually looking to kind of where the president's mindset is right now. Kind of it's like what it's like in his second term. And he has these Friday night dinners where he brings people into the White House. They're completely off the record, and they're all people from all walks of life and all kinds of people. We're talking to everyone from composers to celebrities to actors to architects. And they have these really, these long dinners where they're just talking about everything. And he talks about how he can really kind of feel his mind expanding. And then, it comes crashing back down to earth when he has to get back to the reality of Washington.
Well, I was going to say, you can't blame him for wanting to get out of the bubble when inside the bubble he has to deal with things like, number one, the Speaker of the House of Representatives saying, I'm going to sue you for exceeding your executive authority by signing whatever executive orders. Boehner was not specific about which ones. Does this lawsuit have any possibility at all?
To be fair, the lawsuit is a time-honored American tradition, so he is following in a grand time-honored path here. But let's be honest here. The courts have been kind of reluctant to wade into this area.
I was going to say, lawsuits of one branch of the government against the other are not a time-honored tradition.
That's right. So this takes it into new territory, obviously. But this is about a couple of things, right? So first of all, we're in an election year. The GOP base is very, very exercised about the president, but they call his abuse of executive power, that he's gone rogue, and this is one of the major themes of the Republican Congress heading into the midterms this fall. And so this is another tool to show that Republicans in Congress are
one of the major themes that they're trying to develop and
that's right.
and argue.
So this falls into that arena.
So, in other words, you're saying it is all political.
I would not say that, obviously, but, there's some element of politics in there, let's be honest, in every calculation.
Maybe 98%.
We can't speculate as to the percentage, but let's be honest, it's in there. Yeah. And beyond that, it's not just about what happens now, it's about what happens in the future.
Mixing my cocktail for the weekend. I'm starting early.
Shaken, not stirred, apparently.
It's after 8, so.
That's right.
Yeah, it's lunchtime for us.
Iced tea. Not Long Island iced tea either. Right.
But they're looking ahead to the future. One reporter was saying yesterday when there was discussion of this, this suit or the possibility of the suit. Let's note that it hasn't been filed yet.
Right. They haven't even voted yet, but John Boehner said they're going to vote in July,
that's right.
And we know what the outcome of that vote's going to be.
That's right. Yeah. So it was basically saying, hey, this is about President Hillary Clinton, not President Barack Obama, given how long this would take to work its way through the courts. It's about sending a message to the next executive, hey, don't mess with Congress.
A shot across her bow, right?
That's right.
Don't mess with Congress. Did you see the numbers yesterday? I forget now all of them, but I do remember with, I think President Clinton had signed 364 executive orders, George Bush 291, and Barack Obama so far 168.
Right, but they are making them count. And one of the other things about this is, not just what he's doing, but how visible he's doing it and how he's making it a centerpiece of his second term. Every opportunity they get, White House aides point to the pen and the phone strategy, basically saying that they're making, not that they're leaving Congress aside completely, but that they're making essentially an end run around Congress, looking for opportunities where they can act where Congress won't.
2 questions. Who pays for this lawsuit?
Well, technically this is going to be coming from, what's called a bipartisan legislative group, which is not actually bipartisan because, of course, the House is controlled by the Republican, right? So,
no Democrat's going to vote for this lawsuit,
right? So. But
who pays for it?
My understanding is that the money for it would come from Congress because this is going to be a suit filed by the legislative branch,
which means you and I pay for it. That's what I'm getting at, right?
This is sure.
It's going to be a taxpayer-funded lawsuit. First question. The second question is, the last time the House got involved in some legal matter was when the administration refused to defend any longer the Defense of Marriage Act, right?
That's right.
The House, John Boehner says, we'll take it on. We, again, using taxpayer funds, we'll take it on. Take it all the way to the Supreme Court. How did that turn out?
It's not the best track record in the world.
Right. But, they lost their shirt from the Roberts Supreme Court.
Past results are no guarantee of future performance in the John Boehner.
Yeah, I thought. I don't know whether you heard Neil Cavuto's exchange with Michelle Bachmann on this issue. Did you? No? On Fox? So this is Fox News, okay? Neil Cavuto, anchor on Fox News, and Michelle Bachmann is on trying to defend this lawsuit. If it's too crazy for Fox News, it's pretty far out there. Just listen to this little exchange.
Where was your rage? Where was your rage, Congresswoman?
Listen.
Where was your rage, Congresswoman? No. You're conflating issues and you're being silly. Where was your rage when Democrats were going after President Bush on the same use of executive orders? Because I think you knew then that was a waste of time then, and I think you know in your heart of hearts this is a waste of time now. There are far more important things that you guys have to be addressing. Think about what you're saying. Defund the executive branch. Congresswoman, if If Democrats had said, we're going to just defund President Bush, we're going to defund the executive, you would laugh them out. And so you should have then. And I think Democrats will be in their right mind to laugh you out now. We'll have more after this.
Well, then what do you do? What do you do? That's what the...
What do you do? What do you do? They went to a break with Michelle Bachmann sitting there saying, what do you do? What do you do?
I mean, but that's the question. What can they do? And they have to seem as though they're doing something to address this, even though the tools at their disposal.
I have several answers what they could do.
What can they do?
Immigration reform,
right.
Climate change, extend unemployment insurance benefits, raise the minimum wage.
These are all very constructive suggestions.
Yeah, which they could do. Instead, they're going to sue the President of the United States. There you go. Rebecca Sinderbrand in the studio with us from Politico, Deputy White House editor or reporter?
Editor.
Editor. Thought so. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've got here. I just want to be sure.
It's on the
paper. And your questions and comments, we'll find a seat for you at the table at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At 26 minutes after the hour, Rebecca Sinderbrand here from Politico. And Rebecca, we were talking before about, just before the break, what are the things, as Michelle Bachmann says, what can we do? What can we do? I mentioned immigration reform. Today is a big anniversary for immigration reform.
That's right. It is the 1-year anniversary of the Senate passing bipartisan immigration reform, which since then has gone nowhere.
Right. So this bill came out of the Senate with a head of steam, bipartisan support. We thought, well, it may not make it through the House, but at least we'll put it up, bring it up for a vote, and see how it does.
No, and you know, we've reached the point where it's, you know, it's not.
No vote.
That's right. I mean, you know, activists are basically acknowledging that immigration reform is probably essentially dead for the remainder of the Obama administration.
Now, what happened to all these Republican voices, Lindsey Graham among others, who were saying just a year ago, the Republican Party has to be out in front on this because we got shellacked with Mitt Romney in the Latino vote because it looked like we didn't care. So now we have to show that we care, and we have to be a leader in immigration reform if we ever hope to get back the White House.
Well, let's be clear, though. This is not a White House year. This is actually a midterm year. And, you know, there's only a handful of races where support for immigration reform could actually boost Republican candidates' chances of being elected in the general or in the certainly not in the primary. You know, you have the new poll out today, the new Gallup poll, and the numbers that show that a majority of Republicans and independents think there actually is too much immigration at this point. And so there is not the appetite at this moment. Now, looking ahead to 2016, when you have a national race looking to the White House, absolutely essential. But for this year, with an older electorate, a wider electorate, a more conservative electorate, not necessarily something that Republican candidates are looking forward to.
Not a priority for 2014, so it's just not going to happen. Okay. Well, with that
cheery
encouraging note,
That's right.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for coming in.
Same
See
here.
you again
Thanks
soon.
for having me.
Is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov. If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making Home Affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years...
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Friday, June 27th, 33 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show here in our nation's capital and our studio in Capitol Hill. And we're brought to you today by AFSCME, the good men and women of AFSCME under President Lee Saunders, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. All across the country, you can find out about their good work making America happen at afscme.org, AFSCME.org. So we consider this the official beginning of the summer. After all, it's the weekend before and spills over into 4th of July weekend and 4th of July week. So you won't see much activity or action out of Washington after this weekend, and you haven't seen much before it either. But to the extent that there's anything going on at the White House or the Congress, you find out by reading Roll Call, rollcall.com, and the editor-in-chief of Roll Call, Christina Bellantoni, joining us in our studio this morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Christina, nice to see you.
Great to see you.
We used to hang out together, truth be told, at the White House in the briefing room, back in the 5th row or 5th or 6th row, right?
Wherever we could find a seat.
Back of the room where the real powers are. There's David Corn of Mother Jones then, remember? Dan Stone from Newsweek, and it was we had that little, and Sam Stein from Huffington Post had that little cabal there in the back of the room.
Now getting a little bit more respect.
Not much more.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. You know, looking at Congress, as you do, yesterday losing a real giant, Howard Baker, who described himself as a moderate to a moderate conservative. What would happen to a Republican today who stood up and said, I'm a moderate?
Well, yes.
From the South.
That's true. But look at Thad Cochran. He didn't use those words, but he went out there and he made an argument for what government can do for folks back home. Mm-hmm. And that was a successful argument for him. And you can have this debate over whether it was fair that he had Democrats voting for him, but he has brought a lot to that state, and not just money or pork or wasting taxpayer dollars. He has ensured that it has flood insurance. He has ensured that they got Katrina rebuilding money. Yeah. You know, he has really built up infrastructure there the same way that Robert Byrd did in West Virginia for decades.
No, exactly. No, he's close. He's as close as we have, I guess, Cochran is, to a Howard Baker kind of senator. Right?
Yeah, there's
Republican
so few
or
of
Democrat,
them. And he's not a liberal by any means, but certainly understands the role of government in a way that some of the Tea Party Republicans don't.
He would not want to be called a moderate today.
Oh, surely not.
No. Well, you know, Peter, if we can, we played this a little bit earlier. This is Howard Baker in 1998, which makes so much sense, but today might even be considered radical. Here he's talking about how they have to work together to get things done. Howard Baker.
We're doing the business of the American people. We do it every day. We have to do it with the same people every day. And if we cannot be civil to one another, and if we stop dealing with those with whom we disagree or that we don't like, we would soon stop functioning altogether.
So prophetic.
Absolutely. And, that wasn't just rhetoric for him. You could attach his name to so many important things: the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Panama Canal Treaty. I mean, Joe Biden, I thought, had the most detailed statement. The president had a nice statement saying, of course, he was known as the great conciliator. That was very important. He made his mark on history. But Biden talked about specifics. They served together for many years. And he basically said that without him, you wouldn't have seen a lot of actual legislating done in the Senate, because this was someone who really understood how to build a coalition, not just with politics, but with regions. And that's super important in this day and age.
And, there were others in his style, I think, Republicans and Democrats. I think of Bob Dole, even Trent Lott. Trent Lott was conservative, but he knew that he was there to get things done.
And
Tom Daschle,
John McCain in his day,
Mitchell.
He sure likes to think of himself as that. Susan Collins is really sort of the last one at this point.
I think you're right. Yeah, but there are not many left. Not making Republicans like that anymore. Speaking of maybe just the opposite approach about working together. So Speaker Boehner this week said we're going to ask Republicans, members of the House in July, to join in a lawsuit against the President of the United States for exceeding his authority, executive authority.
Yeah.
Is this just a silly political exercise, or is there anything substantive to it, do you think?
Well, the president's line, the White House line, is you've yet to see John Boehner name a specific action that he would target. And
which I think is true.
It is actually true. So Boehner put out this full memo to all of the House Republicans, which we posted at rollcall.com. You can read that specifically. And he goes through where, areas where he thinks the president has sort of flouted Congress. And you could take that in a lot of directions. The president at the State of the Union stood there and told members, I'm going to use my pen and my phone to be able to bypass you because you're not getting anything done. He has passed a number of executive actions that they don't like. I'll point out some of those are very popular. The DACA decision, which allowed children of undocumented immigrants brought here not of their own regard, if they had a certain standing, were of a certain age, they could stay in this country. And you can't tell me that they're going to suddenly try to deport those people that were brought in now a year ago and were allowed to stay or get on a pathway to citizenship. So that's not going to happen. So what are the other actions you're talking about? I mean, you've got pretty frustrated Republican Party when it comes to what the president might do in Iraq. And they're in a weird position, right? Because some of them are hawks. Most of them supported the conflict to begin with, whereas Democrats didn't. And the president is sort of saying, I don't need Congress. I have indefinite authority to send these advisors, and I'm not even going to tell you when they're going to come back. Pair that a little bit with the Supreme Court decision yesterday, basically agreeing with Senate Republicans that they are not in recess if they've got these pro forma sessions, which we'll see actually next week. Every 3 days, they come in, they say, we're here, we're going to gavel out. They're saying that President Obama, by appointing people specifically to the National Labor Relations Board, was violating the Constitution. That's a big deal. So it's a little process heavy. I'm not sure that voters understand it in the same way they understand, Benghazi or Obamacare's website sucks or whatever. But they do get excited about this. And so they're all about energizing their base right now.
And that's what this lawsuit is really all about,
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah. And there has been this meme, if you will, of the imperial presidency, do we have a king? I mean, he just ignores Congress altogether and everything. And so the lawsuit is
it's all part of
continues all part of that theme.
And, it's funny, too, because at the same time, the Democrats need excited liberals, and excited liberals are saying, you don't do nearly enough. The executive action that he did last week protecting LGBT discrimination basically within the federal workforce, that was so long in coming, and people were very frustrated that he hadn't done that a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah. So you can't win for losing sometimes. No, exactly right. Of all of the things that are left over, and there has been a question about whether maybe after the midterm, after the primaries, that there might be more hope with immigration than Kevin McCarthy is elected. Maybe there's more hope with him, that there'll be a vote on immigration. Today is the first anniversary of the Senate passage of comprehensive immigration reform. It's not going to happen.
No, it wasn't. And, Eric Cantor's loss, a lot of people said this was the day that immigration reform died. It was already dead. This was never going to come to the floor. They had a lot of good words for it and sort of kept it alive. Well, it's possible. Well, they released these immigration principles from the House Republican Conference, which Kevin McCarthy supports those, by the way. And they basically look like the Senate bill, even though they say, no, we don't like the Senate bill. But he was part of this negotiating committee. So was Raul Labrador, funnily enough, and then walked out. But this was never something, because what happens is in a midterm election, you need your base angry. You don't need your base angry at you. You need them angry at the other guys. And there's enough people that look at this as amnesty and will melt those phones down for a certain segment of Republicans. They don't want that to happen again. I mean, a lot of people said this is the closest we've ever come because a Senate bill actually passed 1 year ago today. The closest they ever came was in 2007, when the Democrats took over Congress and George W. Bush was still right there, and that deal fell apart. And it fell apart in part because of angry activists, even if they're a minority of the population right now.
Angry activists stirred up by angry talk radio. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And I mean, as I recall, Trent Lott was even for that at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, and a majority of Republicans still are. If you ask them, do you like the following things? They're going to say yes. And the Democrats like to say all the time, if you put this on the floor tomorrow, it would pass. We have the votes to actually pass legislation. And there's this big fantasy, I think, within the media, like, wouldn't it be exciting if John Boehner just did it and said, to hell with it, I'm going to really push this and allow something to pass that we know has the support. That will not happen. And it's not because he wants to protect his speakership. It's just because he knows that it will hurt enough Republicans that it's just not worth them doing that. Is it possible in a lame duck session? It's not impossible, but I am not going to hold out hope. I think this is a 2017 issue. No matter who is president, they're going to recognize that something has to be done, but that's several more years where people wait in limbo.
Oh, we're talking 2017 now. Okay. Do you think the World Cup was big? You haven't heard about the biggest sports event of the century, certainly of this year, which happened this week, sponsored by Roll Call. Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call, editor-in-chief, will tell us all about it when we come back. Questions or comments on immigration or on the Boehner lawsuit or whatever, or tributes to Howard Baker, welcome at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Christina Bellantoni, editor-in-chief of Roll Call, here in studio with us at 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Make that 12 minutes before the top of the hour on a Friday. Big weekend plans?
I'm relaxing finally.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a long time, so it's good.
Just to be able to kick back.
Yeah.
So tell us about the big ball game this week. This is Roll Call's,
it was the 53rd annual Roll Call Congressional Baseball Game.
Wow.
Now, they've actually had it many more years than that, but it died for several years because all of the lawmakers kept getting hurt. Because, Congress is a little bit older than the average person who plays on a baseball team. And they were getting hurt.
These are actually members of Congress.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we talked, because last week, the week before, we had talked about the women reporters like yourself.
Right.
You are on the team of the Bad News Babes.
That's right, the Congressional Women's Softball Game.
Women members of Congress. But these both
those
teams
are bipartisan members of Congress.
Oh, yeah,
on that team.
that's right.
Bipartisan, that's right. Yeah.
So the Roll Call Congressional Baseball Game, basically Sid Udain, our founder, it's a 60-year-old paper next year, he said, you know what, let's revive this game. And so he got together and he worked with Oxley and a bunch of other people, and he said, let's bring this back. And so they've been doing it all over the region for a long time. But when National Stadium was built, they said, okay, we're definitely going to do it there. So that made the event obviously a lot bigger.
It's a big venue.
Yeah, it's on ESPN 5 or whatever. Live broadcast on TOP. I shouldn't mention any of your competitors, but XM. I got to do color commentary. It's really fun. But the idea is that the Republican team versus the Democratic team, and there are some really terrific
members of House
players.
And Senate,
exactly.
Or just House?
There's only a couple senators. Senator Rand Paul plays for the Republicans. He is not very good, I will say.
Yeah.
Senator Chris Murphy was actually a college player and then hurt his shoulder. He's the catcher. And then Joe Donnelly plays, and he's decent. But their star player is Cedric Richmond, who was a pitcher in college, and he just smokes the Republicans. Now they've won 5 years in a row. So I got to present the coveted Roll Call trophy on the field the other night as it started raining. The final score is 15-6.
Whoa!
And it's funny to watch because there's so many errors. And Roll Call, I will give us a little shout out. We have this great post up from photographer Bill Clark about all of the bloopers that he caught on camera. Sort of a pictorial essay.
Really?
And some slideshows. Because it's funny, you see these members of Congress.
You can find it at rollcall.com.
Yeah. And we have a video up through the years because this was, Silvio Conti played for years and years. And we have all these pictures. He would come up to bat with a cigar in his mouth.
Oh, my God.
But it really forges friendships on the field. I'm actually writing a column about this because in some ways it's one of the last vestiges of what used to be. Back to Howard Baker.
Back to Howard Baker, right.
This feeling that you were part of something. Even if you were on opposite political parties, you were in it together.
Well, there used to be a lot of that kind of stuff, like seersucker days. Which I always made fun of.
They brought it back recently.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
Feeble attempt, right?
Sure.
But, and I saw Trent Lott the other night, and he was talking about the fact that so much changed, and other people have made the same point. When the members used to live here, and they brought their families here. Mm-hmm. And so the weekend would come and they would get together and they would go to, hang out at so-and-so's house or the other house, whatever. And they forged friendships and relationships, and it made a big difference.
It really did.
And something like this baseball game is the same thing.
Yeah, and there's a roll call golf game too. I mean, like there's just all of these things that build that community, and a few members that are really, really involved in it. Meehan from Pennsylvania is really involved. Roger Williams from Texas. I mean, he's obviously a former professional ball player. So it builds this spirit that is good, and it's all for charity, of course. But just watching, like Tim Ryan out there, hugging Vance McAllister, or these are just funny experiences. So I highly recommend it. It benefits charity. They raised, I think it was $175,000 for 3 different charities. The primary of which being the Washington Literacy Center.
Again, you can find this video at rollcall.com. Now, do they really practice ahead of time? I know you Bad News Babes, you guys practice.
They practice more than we do. They practice every day that they're in Washington. So for 3 months, they meet at 6:30 a.m. and they'll practice 3 days a week. Now, they don't all show up, especially the ones that are in cycle. Like Jack Kingston, for example, in a runoff to be the Senate nominee against Michelle Nunn in Georgia, he still showed up at practice sometimes and played. You had several members that were just sort of sometimes there, will they come back is a big question. Raul Ruiz on the Democrats was the MVP for them, and he's obviously in a competitive race in California too.
Yeah, so he's able to pull it off. And so finally, I got to ask you, what do you think about President Obama, the bear on the loose? I mean, what is...
He finds himself hilarious.
Is he getting bored?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, right? You feel a little cooped up, but I read whoever he told that all he wants to do is just stroll down to the Lincoln Memorial and be anonymous, and cry me a river. You're the president of the United States. There's a lot that you can do, and I don't worry about him golfing or being going on vacation, but I think that actually getting out there and talking to real people doesn't hurt. The problem is that a lot of this is fairly orchestrated. The Chipotle thing, they had constituents of his ready to chat, and he wants to showcase minimum wage things. But it reminds me a little bit of Bill Clinton wanting to show how busy he was, in his second term, to be able to say, it might be incremental, but we are going to do thing after thing after thing, and event after event. I'm going to sign lots of executive actions, in part to show, if Congress isn't going to do something, I am, and maybe that just means talking to people out at Starbucks. Yeah, watch out. So the bear is loose. And somebody said earlier, you invite Obama over for a burger these days. He may actually show up. Yeah. Hey, Christina, it's so much fun to have you in studio. Thanks so much for being here. All right, see you again soon. Definitely.
Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call, and it's rollcall.com. I'll be back with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning If you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
You know, we lament the fact that there aren't any moderate Republicans left. Well, he's the kind of Republican we're talking about, Howard Baker of Tennessee, former Republican Senate Majority Leader, dead yesterday at the age of 88. He served as White House Chief of Staff. He was our ambassador to Japan. We remember him most of all as a United States Senator, where Howard Baker was known as a great conciliator. Howard Baker, who said he himself described himself as a moderate to a moderate conservative. Imagine any Republican calling himself that today. Howard Baker, willing, of course, to take on even leaders of his own party, will forever be known for asking that question. What did the president know and when did he know it? Howard Baker. They just don't make Republicans like that anymore today, and we are all at a loss because of that. Hey, folks, that's it. Go out and have a great, great weekend. Beginning of summer. Come back and see us again on Monday morning.